Hey guys, Qoheleth, Legend Goddess, here with a deck profile of a clan that I decided to pick up recently because it supports a play style that I like playing in other games. So I figured why not, and I do enjoy it. If you can't tell by the Camille mat and the Blaster Blade Liberator sleeves, it's Link Choker, specifically Chaos Breaker. So Chaos Breaker's been around a very long time. He's iconic in the Vanguard world. I would say he's as iconic as Dote when it comes to playing Vanguard. So, and he got more support a long time ago, but he's still, in my opinion, very valid because the way he plays is just good against most things. So yeah, we'll just go right into the deck. We run Carbon. Carbon, for who you don't know, is you can throw him in a soul when your opponent has a lock card, search for a grade 1 or less, a Star Vader name, not named him, and then put him in the rear guard. Shuffle your deck. So he's very close to Conroe in the sense that you can tutor a grade 1 out of your deck. Most of our grade 1s do very good things on the rear guard circle, except for our PGs. So he gets us whatever we need at the time. He's great. Love Carbon. Grade 0s, other grade 0s triggers, in this case, pretty standard for Chaos Breaker. 4 heal. And then I decided to omit the draws and go straight into 12 crit. It runs very well, as most people know. Chaos Breaker, for a couple reasons you don't, that in my opinion, you don't want to run draws. One reason, in very attrition-based matchups, games go long, higher chance for decking out. And two, you get so much advantage that you just need some way to push for game, and crits help you do that. Obviously, you run the 4 Paradigm Shift Dragon because it's a crit that can return the deck from your hand. You call it to rear guard, put it on top of your deck. If you have a Star Vader Vanguard and your opponent has a lock card, lock one of their back rows. However, a couple things. You don't need a Star Vader Vanguard, and your opponent doesn't need a lock card to return to the deck. You can just do it. You just don't get the other stuff. So, he's great in that sense. He puts more crits in the deck. We also have other ways to put crits in the deck, but in case we don't want to do those, Paradigm Shift is there for us. Grade 1s. 4 PGs, it's scary. You want to be able to perfect guard. I debated running Cosmo Wreath. In my testing, I didn't need Cosmo Wreath. If you want to play Cosmo Wreath, play Cosmo Wreath. So, but I just ran with Standard Prometheum because he does the job. Put it that way. You just Star Vader, which is important. If for some reason you have like 3 of these in your hand, you can discard them with Chaos Breaker, but you can't do it with Cosmo Wreath. So, now to the other grade 1s that do amazing things. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go into 2 Destiny Dealer. Destiny Dealer is simply Stride Fodder. He's not a Star Vader, which is important for Soul Blasting. You cannot discard him for Chaos Breaker's skill. But he's there just to stride. You run 8 grade 3s, so they're not as big. A lot of people play him at 3. He's not super necessary, but you still want him because you don't want to be caught discarding your grade 2s, which also do crazy things for you in order to stride. So if you can't discard grade 3s, this is your next best bet. So yeah, that's the only reason you need to run Destiny Dealer. Now on to the grade 1 packages that do amazing things for us. 3 Zinc. 3 Zinc is the main reason you don't need Cosmo Wreath. Put him into Soul if your opponent has a lock card and you're a Vanguard with Chaos in the name. Counter charge 2, Soul charge 2. So you net 3 Soul, and you get 2 Counter Blast back, which honestly is nice. It's real nice. Like this deck can function at 3 damage, no problem, because you spend 2, you put this in a Soul, you got 3 back, and you don't need to push yourself to higher damage in order to get more effects off. Zinc does great. It's tutorable with Carbon and other cards. It's good support. Thanks, Bushy. A lot of people omitted this card in a lot of builds I've seen recently, but I think he's great. It's Volt Line. When a unit he's boosted, when an attack hits a Vanguard that this unit boosted, choose an opponent's lock card and Omega Lock it. When you Omega Lock, obviously, he's a lock for another turn. Which allows you to not expend resources dealing with your opponent's rear guards. So, you usually just throw him behind the Vanguard. Again, he is tutorable via Carbon and other cards. That's why Volt Line is great. He saves you hand when you Omega Lock, because one, you don't need to discard in order to lock stuff with Chaos Breaker. You don't need to expend other resources because you just boost and hit. And the main reason he's great, one of the biggest gripes I've heard is you don't get to draw off his skill. But if you can Omega Lock a front row rear guard, that essentially saved you a card. And it keeps the card that you would have drawn in deck so you don't deck out later. So, to me, Volt Line's been an all-star. And I enjoy running him. So, that's why I play him. And then lastly, 2 Charcoal. I know a lot of decks run more than 2. I think 2 is fine. Because again, with Volt Line, you don't need to be using Chaos Breaker's Limit Break as often. If you can keep their stuff locked, that it's not an issue, you save hand anyway, and you keep cards in deck. So it's the best of both worlds. Now, of course, there are games where you do want Chaos Breaker's Limit Break, and that's why we have Carbon to fetch Charcoal. Charcoal allows us to use either of our Vanguard's Limit Breaks because we have 2. So you still want him in the deck, you just don't need him at 2, and he is as vanilla as rear guards come, because he doesn't offer anything else, like Volt Line or Zinc, so that's why we brought him down to 2, and it's been working out for me just fine. Going to grade 2s, one of the best grade 2 rear guards in the clan, if not ever, when it comes to just skills that usually cost resources, and this one doesn't. Photon, on call, if your opponent has a lock card, lock a rear guard. No restriction other than that they have the lock card, so usually what you can do is take care of their front rows with this guy. Card's great. You run him even though he's a vanilla after his skill, because he essentially almost draws you a card or 2. And that's for free. Can't get much better, plus he's the mate of one of our Vanguards. So, you're obviously going to run him. You run 3 Colony Maker. Colony Maker is also great because it's so free. Excuse me. With Carbon, it allows us to tutor our key grade 1s that we need for whatever the situation. If we need Limit Break, if we need Counter Charge, if we need Counter Charge or Soul, I guess. If we need to be able to pressure our opponent with Omega Lock. Colony Maker is great because usually, at least when I was playing Shadows back in the day when this card was released, and I had to deal with Tartu, and Tartu was like, yeah, you got to call it behind it. Well, Colony Maker was like, whatever, call it wherever, which is great, because you can call a Volt Line behind the Vanguard for maximum pressure. So, Colony Maker gets us all the tutor targets we need. I'm also running 2 Mobius Breath. Mobius Breath was something I kind of thought of later. And the main reason that I ran Mobius Breath was because I was really wanting to make Volt Line work. And with Volt Line, if you ride this and call a Volt Line behind it, you can Omega Lock whatever you lock. Which is pretty great, because you can hit a front row with this. If you can hit a front row rear guard with this, that means that unit that you locked will stay locked for Chaos Breaker when you ride into it. It also stays locked for Chaos Bringer, so that you can get into Chaos Breaker if you need to. So Mobius Breath 1 is a very strong Vanguard on grade 2. He helps suppress rush, all this other jazz. And 2, with the added pressure of Volt Line, it's a 16k column, that's a 15k no pass for almost anybody. That it just adds more pressure that if they guard it, they lose hand, you got to hit them with 12 crit. Or if they don't guard it, you save yourself a couple of cards and you set up your plays for the next turn. With you don't have to worry about expending a card from your hand with Chaos Breaker's skill to use Photon, to use Colony Maker, or any of that. So Mobius plus Volt Line is the main reason to run Mobius. Mobius by himself is okay, but it gets really strong when you can boost and hit with Volt Line behind Mobius. That it makes me feel it's worth running. Otherwise, it is a very vanilla grade 2. It does nothing else on the rear guard, but your other grade 2 rear guards are very strong, so we had the flex spot to run Mobius. And lastly, we run 2 Iron. Iron has a kind of +1 skill, kind of +1 to do the same thing as Photon. On call, if your opponent's a lock card, lock another rear guard of your opponent's. Very good skill. Obviously not as good as Photon by any means, but it is still very good that it's worth running at 2. And it also has another skill that if you have a Chaos Vanguard, he gets +2k when he attacks. So, since you have Zinc, what you can do is just go like Carbon or Colony Maker into Zinc, get your counter charge, and you don't need a booster for this Data Vanguard. That's the best reason to run Iron. that he's a great copies of 5 and 6 of Photon. If you could run 5 and 6 of Photon, you would, but you can't. So Iron's the next best thing. That's why you run Iron. I don't think you want to run max out Mobius at 4, because you don't always have the Volt line. If you really want to, you can. If you don't run a Mobius at all, run 4 Iron. But the other grade 2s are only okay. Like the other grade 2 mates only really work well with their mate, so you don't really want to run those. You can run the 12k attacker if you want, but this is an 11k attacker with upside, so they're essentially the same thing. So you might as well just run this. But anyway, we're gonna go into the grade 3s. If you couldn't guess, 4 Chaos Breaker, because the card's still great. They even reprinted him in Revival Collection to make him give him the old flag for G Standard or whatever the hell it's called. That isn't a format, but they keep doing. But anyway, so for those of you who don't know, he has a once per turn skill of kind of +1, discard a Star Vader, choose one of your opponent's rear cards, unlock it. Card's great. Skill's great. It does cost you a card from hand, but if you can set up your plays, you end up netting at least 2 cards back in value from locking your opponent's card. And then he has a limit break skill, an infamous limit break skill of Soul Blast to Soul Vader, Star Vader. When your opponent's rear guard would unlock during their end phase, retire that unit, draw a card. So, unfortunately, it doesn't get past clans that unlock their stuff at other times, like Messiah or Mithril Ezel or Holy Squire Dragon. You're just kind of screwed in those cases. But against most other clans, or poker, any clan that uses poker, but in most other cases, he's going to do great things for you. And it just, not only is it a minus to your opponent, but it gives you an extra card, and you already got a bunch of advantage from not having the unit that you locked attack you. So it's almost like drawing 2 cards, if you want to put it that way. So I can't really sing his praises enough, because you should know it by now if you haven't run into this card the entire time you played Vanguard. I'm happy for you, because whether you're piling in the deck or you're fighting against the deck, the card's powerful. And you can tell that just by playing against it. Our other limit break unit is Chaos Bringer. Chaos Bringer does a couple things for us. He still has the ability to set up our lock plays by on ride, kind of +1, lock a back row unit of your opponents. And he also gets us into our Chaos Breaker. Limit break 4, kind of +1, at the beginning of your opponent's main phase. If your opponent has 2 lock cards, you can search your deck for a Chaos Breaker right at his stand. So that means you're ready to retire whenever your opponent's turn ends. You're ready to retire because you're at limit break already, and he adds the soul, so he gives you more cards, more ammo to retire your opponent's stuff. And plus, he also has chaos in the name, so he sets off a card in our stride deck and iron. So it's also important. Basically, he's copies 5 and 6 of Chaos Breaker. If we can run copies 5 and 6 of Chaos Breaker, we would, but we can't. So we run Chaos Bringer. And then lastly, we run Garnet Star. If you really want to, like I chose Garnet Star because I had him. If you really want to, I don't really suggest it, but you can run Blaster Joker because he's a mate for Photon as well. But Garnet Star is there for those late games that go late, and you need to shuffle cards back into your deck so you don't deck out, and you need to put more triggers in there so you can murder your opponent. Honestly, if you ride Garnet Star prior to doing that, you lose a lot of advantage. Because one, if you went first and you ride in a Garnet Star, you cannot Legion. So that means that you would need to do a couple things. If you want to get the advantage of locking stuff, you need to Legion, which means you're not striding. And you can't go into your most powerful first turn stride, which is Chaos Universe, because he does not have Chaos in the name. So he can be a detriment if you really want to. Run him at 1 and bring Chaos Breaker to 3. But I find that 2 is fine. It hasn't screwed me yet, but I know other people have different opinions. So use your discretion, but at least play him at 1 because he's great for those late game, those games that go late because you need to shuffle back cards into your deck so you don't deck out, which is a very real thing with this deck, as it is for most Link Joker decks. So going into the Stride deck, I know there are usually 8 cards in every Chaos Bringer deck, in the Stride deck, and that is obviously for Chaos Universe. Card is silly. For those of you who don't know, Counterblast 1, it's an act, so you can do it whenever. Counterblast 1, flip a copy of himself. Your opponent, choose a rearguard circle, an open rearguard circle. Your opponent calls a card from his or her hand into lock. So, usually what you do is, you pick the front row rearguard circle, you lock it instantly, and then you can go into Photon and all the other jazz. So, that card's locked, or that space is locked, and they can't use it the next turn. If you have 2 or more face-up G units, lock another rearguard. So this guy can take care of your opponent's front row by himself. He is countered by your opponent keeping units in the front row, but you can go into another stride in order to combat that. It's just a very good card, and you run it in every Chaos Breaker deck. Simple as that. Next, you run 4 Big Crunch. Big Crunch is also very silly. The unfortunate part of Big Crunch is that you cannot use him effectively if you ride in a Garnet Star, because he's an X skill as well. Counterblast 1, choose a copy of himself, flip it up. I'm just going to read it. If the number of cards, face-up cards in your G zone is 2 or more, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, lock all the rearguards in that column, and they're Omega locked. So, he is useless if he is a first turn, and he is the only card face-up in your G zone. He is useless. He does absolutely nothing. So, if you were to go into Garnet Star and you could try this and then use its skill, it'd be great. It'd be fine. Garnet Star wouldn't be that big of a detriment, but you can't. But, otherwise, Nebula is usually your second turn stride. Unless your opponent has an empty field, then you usually go back into Chaos. But either way, he takes care of a column, which means he can get around resist. If, like, let's say the front row has resist, but the back row doesn't, just choose the back row. The whole column gets locked because you're not targeting the resist unit. And they're both Omega locked, so you get around it that way. Otherwise, he just offers a great advantage for Counterblast 1. And there's a reason that his price is very, very strange right now. Like, when I was looking for them, they were anywhere from like $15 to $35, depending on where you looked. So, if you can find him for cheap, pick him up. But you will need him because he's just great. The rest of the G-Zone for Chaos Breaker is your discretion. So this is what I went with. Obviously, you want to run some number of amnesties. They're great in the mirror. And they work okay with some of your other G-Guards. But anyway, amnesty is just great in the mirror because if they lock you, you got to be able to get out of it. And if you can unlock 3 of your stuff for Counterblast 1, you get an extra crit. So that's the main reason you run Amnesty. You want to run at least 1, but Link Trigger is pretty prevalent where I'm at, so I run at least 2. I might even bump him up. Maybe even run an Excelix, who knows. But Amnesty is definitely worth running at 1 because he keeps you safe in the mirror. And the mirror is already a hard matchup. So, well, especially the Messiah is a very hard matchup. This is the mirror breaker, like an actual CBD versus CBD deck. Because, again, I forget, your opponent can't draw when you unlock with this. So, and then as a finisher, quote unquote, we run Blizza. We run 2 Blizza. 2 Blizza, because our main strides flip up copies of themselves. So we only have 4 stride turns. And then we have 8 face up, so that's 40k. So these push for game towards late game, and usually your opponent has to use perfect guards in order, just because they're in their hand. Like, they can't just hoard them. Not all, they can't, but not all the time. So what these do is, when your opponent's resourced out, they don't have perfect guards, they use a decent amount of their G guards maybe. You can just go into Blizza and go, okay, here's, what is it, 77-ish? 77k boosted. Yeah. So unless they have a perfect guard or they have multiple G guards, they usually can't take care of, they may be able to take care of 1 but not both. So that's why I run double Blizza. Because, again, Chaos Breaker doesn't have any pushing power. It has great late game sustainability, but it doesn't push for game very well, and you want to end the game before you deck out. So that's why we run Blizza. As far as G-Guards, I'm just going to put down the 4 I chose. I chose very safe stuff. Screw, because it's 25k shield, you could discard a card when you discard a card. Dismal, because VMAX. Main reason, really. You don't really have any high-profile rear guards that you need to protect, except maybe Charcoal, because he's the only one that does something, except Voltline. But anyway, but mainly VMAX, make sure you don't die. Maxwell, because like it's okay. Like locking one of your own things, like he's a Star Vader, but everyone makes a joke that he's a traitor. He's really a Messiah. Lock one of your own stuff for plus 5k shield. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. You can go into Messiah and unlock it, so you don't really lose anything. It's okay. It's definitely better in Messiahs than it is in Chaosbreaker. And Destiny Guardian is way better in Messiahs than it is in Chaosbreaker. You can actually, I probably shouldn't be running this. I should probably just be running another Screw. But anyway, what Destiny Guardian does is you can unlock 2 cards on the field. So either your opponent's or yours. And if you unlock 2, you get plus 10k shield. So if you go like Destiny Guardian to guard 1 attack, I'm sorry, Demon Maxwell to guard 1 attack, and then Destiny Guardian to guard the other, you won't get the plus 10k shield, but you will get your unlock. So that's fine. He also does really well in the mirror. This was actually the most annoying part about the mirror, is because they would just unlock their 2 front row, and you did all your hard work for nothing, and you can't do anything about it. So that's another reason to run him, but against generic matchups, he's really not that great, because you don't want to unlock your opponent's stuff because it's stood when they unlock it. So, and you can't retire it because it's not during their end phase. So anyway, that is Chaosbreaker. Still a rather strong deck, even though as it stands, the only support that Lynx is getting is in Fighters Collection. Hopefully their GR does something cool. We shall see. Their G-Guardian is pretty neat, but it definitely slots in because the G-Guards that they currently have aren't that good. But anyway, that is Chaosbreaker, my take on it. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.
Announcing the IYG Stand-Up Series. Experience a new level of competition. Face fighters from across the country. Meet your favorite personalities. Ash, Diesel, Qoheleth, let's play card games together. Stand up, Vanguard. Imagine your goddess. And check this out.